I am a foot taller than my ex, so anyone that looked at us would really think that if there was an abusive relationship, it wasn't going to be me receiving, I guess.
Welcome back to Other People's Lives. I'm Joe Santagato.
I'm Greg Dybec.
For anyone out there that would like to be a guest on our show, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Our email is oplpodcast@gmail.com. Just send us an email with your story and we'll get back to you.
Yes, today we're speaking with a man who reached out and wants to talk about a side of abusive relationships that isn't talked about so often. In this case, it's a man being abused by a woman in the relationship, which can often be brushed off as not that serious or not likely, or that a man might be exaggerating the abuse. But this is obviously a very real dynamic in relationships out there. So we'll be hearing about it from a man's perspective, from someone who has gone through it. So we've got the guest on the line. And first of all, thanks so much for being on and sharing your story today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So I didn't spoil it in the intro, but your email subject line was very specific in the sense of you kind of, I guess, painting a picture of the difference between you and your girlfriend. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, basically, I tried to make it a point to, I mean, if you looked at the two of us, the main thing I wanted to specify was I am a foot taller than my ex, so I was 6'1", 6'2", around that range, and she was like 5 foot. Basically saying anyone that looked at us would really think that if there was an abusive relationship, it wasn't going to be me receiving, I guess.
Right.
So I guess I would try and that's basically my what I wanted to specify, and because it's basically just don't trust basically what you see, because it's not always what actually is happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so can you kind of describe, exactly what, the situation was? I mean, you kind of painted the picture for us. You're a lot bigger than her, but obviously there's different ways to kind of go about abuse in a relationship. So can you just kind of, I guess, start from the beginning when you started to notice things were kind of going down this road?
Yeah. So, I mean, we started out like any relationship, honeymoon phase for a long time. Then when I first started to notice some changes, it wasn't anything physical up until the point. It was only her basically trying to control like almost every aspect of my life, from the littlest things of like what we're doing that day to which, I mean, obviously that's not very red flaggy. It's just, it started growing and growing into the point where she would try and control the conversations I would have.
What do you mean by that?
So if I was talking with anyone specifically, like when I was with her, she would not want me to talk to my friends because like she wanted it to be just all focused on her. So which like I couldn't even like respond to like maybe a text that happened, or like if they call me, she would want me to not respond or not even answer. But the major thing with that is like if anyone, even like friends I had before talking with her and like getting with her, she would not want me to talk to any female friends I would have, or even if they were her friends, like we would hang out with like some of her friends, she would not want me to talk to them either. Like sometimes even in person, she would want me to like focus on her. And there was at one point where I was asleep at her house, and I woke up to her on my phone looking through my messages, trying to make sure I wasn't doing anything she wouldn't like, I could say.
Yeah. And was this like a really stark difference from the beginning of the relationship? You mentioned honeymoon phase, but in the kind of early stages, were there some of these red flags, or did it just kind of feel like there was a point in the relationship where she really changed and started becoming super controlling?
Oh, in the honeymoon phase, she was basically like, there was no problems, no arguments, not even a slight disagreement. So it was basically like a drastic just, whoa, what's going on here? So it sort of like obviously took me aback, but after like the honeymoon phase was almost like a year or a year and a half. So like, obviously I was like, I understand relationships depend on how long they are fully, but obviously a year of like no disagreements, that type of thing, you're pretty much trying to go in it for the long run type thing. So little disagreements that start to come up, you sort of like push away and like not recognize it's like, hey, this might be an issue in the future.
Right. So, I mean, what kind, so like what was your response when these things started happening, when she started to feel like she was starting to control your life? She wanted more of your attention. Did you just kind of concede to that, or were there a lot of like bumping heads because of that?
Well, she happened to be my first ever girlfriend. So at the time I was basically, I'm a big dude that doesn't exactly, I don't think it's possible for me even to get angry. So every time she did something like this, I would basically be like, okay, yeah, if that's what makes you happy, yeah, I'll do that. To the point where she was the type that if I ever said no to anything, because there would be times like I would have to say no, or else like there was nothing I could do. But even if it was an impossibility, she would not accept no as an answer and would be upset with me, thinking it was like my fault for it being impossible, that type of thing.
It's interesting to mention too that that was your first relationship, because if that's the case, there's no real like reference point for you, or I guess an understanding of how a relationship could be different. So I could just imagine that being confusing, where it's been a year and a half, you said, you don't want to lose this person. It's the first relationship. Do you think that, I guess looking back, put you in a position where you sort of were able to be controlled a little more because of that?
Yeah, definitely. Because in my head when I was going through all this, it basically was just like, oh, this must just how it is. Like I've never been in a relationship, so I didn't know, is this not how it's supposed to be, that type of thing. So in that sense, I just basically accepted it also as a fact of like, I didn't know if this is just who she is, that type of thing. I didn't want to just not accept her for who she is, I guess. But at the same time, I guess was inexperienced at sensing problems in relationships.
Okay. I think that's sort of normal for people. It's hard to identify things when you're in it.
Yeah.
But okay, so was there other forms of sort of abuse that she kind of exuded?
Yeah.
Like,
so she basically, it started out with the whole controlling, and then it basically became she was always mad at me no matter what. Like each time we would hang out, every day we'd spend together would end up somehow, some way, her being mad at me, to the point where it slowly started becoming physical in a way that she would start hitting me in a way, like it wasn't like playful, like she never like playful like open hand slap. It was always closed hand, like try and hit me with her knuckles type thing.
Yeah. That's strange. Do you kind of remember what was going through your mind at the time that started to happen? Because I'm sure even for you, and like the dynamic you laid out in the beginning, a 6'2" man, and 5'1's pretty short for a woman too. Like, did you kind of immediately understand like this is strange, or this might be wrong, or like, wow, she's kind of really hitting me? Or did it take some time to get to that point of you to realize that?
Well, it sort of took some time, because at first, like, I mean, I'll admit, like, I'm a big dude. So like, even if she like tried fully, like, cause it started out like, maybe she'll do it like once, like, and like, I'll just basically shrug it off, because at the same time, yeah, it would leave a bruise or something. But at the same time, I'm a big dude. I can take a hit, I guess, but it's also at the same part, it's more about the feeling behind it, really, because I could take the damage all day. It's just knowing the person you loved at the time wanted to hurt you is more damaging than the hit itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it is just kind of crazy to hear that, because I think, like you said, like whether you could take the damage or not, if the other person is kind of putting their full effort in to hurt you, that's kind of hard to swallow. So do you remember kind of how that began to escalate, or kind of how often did she do this, and did she ever get to the point of hurting you?
Well, there is so it's slowly like grew to the point where she would, I mean, every time we were together, there would be times where like she either did it like jokingly or like, but the jokingly was like sparsely in between. But it would be like if she was annoyed with me, she would like aim for the chest or stomach. She luckily, I don't want to say luckily, but didn't ever go for the face, except for maybe one time where she whatever she was holding, I think it was her phone or TV remote, she got upset with, I think, something I said. But she ended up trying to throw that at me, and it hitting me in the nose, causing me to have a nosebleed.
Even with something like that, is that another thing that you just kind of like shrug off in the moment, or is there a discussion, or, is there you ever saying something like, you can't do that, obviously, was there any sort of like that, or you just kept shrugging it off?
It was for almost the entire relationship was just me like shrugging off almost everything that happened, because I mean, the normal depiction of like what a guy's supposed to be in a relationship is just like, I mean, you can take this, you're like, be a man, walk it off, that type of thing. So I just like, if I got hit in the face, it's like, I've been in contact sports, I've been hit multiple times, I've had not broken nose, been hit in the nose before and caused a nosebleed. So I was like, I mean, I'll just walk it off, I'll go wash my face with water, that type of thing. So I guess I could say like I let a lot of things slide, I guess, because I didn't know that it was a problem even during.
And did it progressively get more common? Like this just became the way that she sort of dealt with issues? Yes,
she never wanted to talk anything out. She actually insistently tried to not talk about anything I brought up. Like if I brought up an issue where it wasn't even related to her hitting me, it was like, hey, we're getting in an argument about something. She would say, let's take a break, not talk to each other for a few days, and we'll pick it back up and see where we were. We would never talk about that problem again. It would just be a slight like, oh, we'll go on our day by ourselves. But we'd end up talking by the end of the day. So it wasn't even a break. So she just basically tried to push every problem away and not actually try and solve it. But the problem she actually didn't, I guess, even try to push away, she just basically, would get mad or anything and either punch me in the arm or something, that type of thing. But yeah, it became frequently to the point where I can't remember a day in the last half of our relationship where she didn't do that.
Wow. It just sounds like total psychological abuse, physical abuse, and just control and manipulation. But it is, to hear you say that, like from your perspective as a much bigger man, and, this isn't something, at least that, I'm aware of, that like, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of outlets for a man going through something like this to kind of turn to, or I don't know how openly other men are kind of talking about this situation, because like you even just said before, it's almost ingrained in your head to brush it off, don't worry about it, or, convince yourself, well, that punch didn't hurt that much, so, I could just take it, and like, I'm the man in this relationship. So, but that's really hard, I think, as kind of a burden to carry with you, and I'm sure very confusing in the moment. And did you have any outlets, or did you kind of tell anyone about this at any point, or did you keep it to yourself for most of the time?
I didn't tell anyone about this until after the relationship ended, actually. And I actually have not told anyone to this detail until this podcast.
Oh, wow.
Basically, it's the type of thing where you fear what people will, think, because they'll look at you as less because of, I understand, like, most people probably won't. It's just at the same time, you can't get rid of that. Just, you think that they'll think less of you because you have, I guess, these issues that you would like to talk about.
So you felt like your friends would judge you and think that you were weak?
Basically, but also at the same time, like, I love my friends. They're good friends. I knew they wouldn't. It's just at the same time, if I, like, during the relationship, I felt like I couldn't, like, go out to them because, like, they would I knew instantly, like, they'd tell me, like, dude, just leave her, that type of thing. But in my mind, it's the whole phrase "love is blind." I feel like love isn't blind to like appearances, that type of thing. Love is blind to the problems that could be there. It's literally blind to everything. You just only focus on the things you want to focus on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's fair. And how then do you begin to even climb out of this, this control by her, but also this control in a way just by your own mind, I guess, just by the idea of masculinity, by the idea of not wanting to tell friends, maybe embarrassment. Like, how do you take that step? Because that seems like a very kind of big leap from where you were to say, like, I need to end this relationship or try to fix it or stand up to her.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I didn't even want to end the relationship until, there were times where we would break up, but it was always in my head that if I didn't go back to her, I would have no one else, because she got me to such a low point that I felt like there was no other possibility. Mm-hmm. So near the end, it would slowly get to a point where I felt like basically there was no point in it in life itself, I guess. So I started to not really focus on the relationship and started more focusing on myself, because it brought me to a point where I wasn't really, I guess, focused in a term of wanting to make her happy. I was more focused on, hey, I'm not in a good place right now. Let's try and fix that type of thing.
Okay.
So you were like basically putting your happiness first over hers for the first time, and you were like, you know what, this is what I need to do for me.
Yes, and to the point of when I started doing that, I slowly realized, hey, she got more and more mad the times where I would try and focus on myself, which slowly got me to a point of, like, slowly seeing the signs of what was happening. And to be honest, that was one of the first times I actually started to realize, like, hey, she is a problem, that type of thing. Because during the time, I would always just shrug it off and I would always just go back to smile and just be like, this is pretty good, having someone that quote unquote loves you, type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
When you said that, you noticed that she would get upset when you would work on yourself. What are some examples of that?
So if there were times where, like, I was, like, down or something, like today wasn't my day and I was trying to, like, maybe do something, like one of my hobbies, that type of thing, to, like, relax a bit, and she would call and, like, try and hang out. Like, I would always, like, at the time, love hanging out with her, but it would also, like, there would be times where I would feel pressured into hanging out with her near the end of our relationship.
Is that part of the manipulation too? Like, do you think where when you did even come close to trying to separate or work on yourself, which she sort of, like, a term that we've learned on the show and that has come up a lot is kind of like love bombing, where she, as someone that's kind of trying to control and manipulate you and abusing you, could almost kind of like just switch it up when she needs to, where like now she's really loving and caring and wants to hang out with you. But then once she has you kind of like back in her control, the abuse picks up again.
Yeah, it's actually strange, like, because like this has been quite some time since this actually happened. So I can actually see, like, there have been times where I've talked to people and I've seen the signs of it, and it's people that try and abuse people and like control them. When they're starting to lose you, they act all nice, but as soon as they know that they have you close again, they instantly just go back to the way they were. They act like they change it to like keep you there.
So I guess to hear from you as a man that's kind of going through these same things, it's just it's very interesting, and it's powerful, and it is that kind of reminder that abuse, it doesn't have to do with sex, gender. Like, it's these people are essentially using the same tactics. And again, I think in your case as a man, it's like you want to push this off as long as you can before you kind of admit to yourself, like, I'm being abused in this relationship. But yeah, no, we've heard that a lot on the show, I think, about those kind of tactics and how an abuser kind of lives on the two extreme sides of a spectrum of, they kind of revert back and forth to like how they were in the beginning of how they kind of got you in with love, but then switch to the abuse side. And then when they need to switch back, they can switch. So yeah, I'm very curious then, how did you ultimately pull yourself away from this? Because it seems like you were starting to focus on yourself, and then you'd kind of get sucked back into it. What was that big moment that made you realize you have to get out, and how did that go over with her?
Well, it was, it sort of ended kind of anticlimactic, because it wasn't like a slow, gradual, like, yeah, I was starting to like focus on myself type of thing, but I was still wanting to be with her. That even though I was starting to see the signs, I was there for too long. I felt I wanted to still be with her, that type of thing. So when I slowly got to the end point of our relationship, I guess the like last 2 times I think we hung out, it was nothing but arguments. And the last day, because it's all been aimed towards me. She didn't aim anything, like, she didn't want me to talk to my friends, but she never said anything bad about my friends. But on the last day, she started just basically going off on both my family and my friends. So I was like, this isn't just about me at this point. She does not care, I guess. She just wants to basically hurt. Mm-hmm. In a way that I can't continue this. So I, in person with her, ended things, which obviously wouldn't turn out well, as she started screaming, all this stuff. I had to instantly get out of the house, get in my car and like drive away. But she was like, she tried to chase my car, that type of thing.
Whoa. Wow.
Yeah.
So she was trying to, you are assuming, like, hit you or something because you were breaking up with her?
Yeah, she basically instantly got mad, that type of thing. And I can only assume that she was going to try to, but I knew instantly, like, I've already started to see, like, hey, this is just how she is. She is going to do this if I do this. So I also, at that time, like, after I drove away and went back to my place, I blocked her on everything, that I didn't want any communication, because I didn't want the chance to be lured back in, because it wouldn't be the first time. That time. So surprisingly enough, after I did that, there was nothing. I haven't spoken a word to her since that day.
Wow. You did mention in the email, you wrote, when you managed to get away from her, she took it upon herself to go to the police. What was that about? That seems kind of like a drastic last attempt from her. Like, what did she say, or did she accuse you of something?
Well, we still hung around our same group. So it started out as like small rumors of just me being a bad boyfriend. slowly went up to, hey, I was abusive. And then it went up to her telling our friend group, which one of my friends actually alerted me before she even went to the police about this. She told in my friend group that basically she said that I, without consent, had intimate relations with her. And I obviously, my friends knowing me, they instantly went to me and was like, hey, we know you didn't do this, but she's saying all these things about you. So after I was told all this, obviously I wasn't too happy about that, but I was like, if I try and engage her and like talk to her about this, it's only going to make it worse. I didn't think she was actually going to go to the police about it, but like 2 or 3 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail saying that the police wanted to come talk to me, that type of thing.
Wow.
Yeah. And so they wouldn't answer, like, obviously, because they wanted to bring me in, ask me questions, that type of thing. But we got a lawyer, had him talk to them, and he got them to say that, yeah, she came in and basically accused me of raping her.
Wow.
And whatever happened to this? Like, whatever, did anything ever come of this?
Well, after that letter, there was, like, obviously, like, you get an accusation like that, it's just your whole world feels like it shuts down, because, like, you never could picture that in your entire life. Like, what I never thought in a day, like, I would have to even think about, like, I could possibly go to jail for something I didn't do.
Yeah. And I mean, does the dynamic, to kind of circle back to what we said in the beginning in your subject line, like, I would feel like there's extra fear when there's a 5'1" woman who is the one going to the police and saying my gigantic boyfriend has abused me and raped me. I would assume that the police will seriously look into that.
Yeah. Well, shockingly enough, obviously I'm very grateful for this, but they didn't actually, I guess they investigated on their side, but they never involved me, I guess. Like, they never forced me to, like, come in, because I don't think that's allowed. Well, it is, but like they would need a warrant, that type of thing. But they probably, I don't know, we never got any information because they aren't allowed to tell us of any investigation. But I have heard nothing since I talked to my lawyer about what happened. Because
Wow, interesting.
I'm very grateful, but, like, it's also didn't help any of the fear, because, like, I knew it could still be going on, that type of thing. But I also knew that, like, I knew stories of, hey, that, I guess, girls versus guys word, that type of thing, where even if there's no evidence, if it's a girl saying it versus a guy saying it, like, despite the size difference between me and her, there's a more likely chance to, like, believe the woman accusing of this, because, like, it's almost like you're not going to walk up to someone, like, accusing someone and be like, no, you're wrong, because, like, I mean, who would do that? But it's at the same time, you don't know if he actually did that, so you just gotta not take sides and not assume instantly this is how it went down.
Yeah, it's just such a life-changing accusation, for you as well. And, like, obviously hearing the story and knowing that you're coming from an abusive relationship as a man. And then, but that is also something typical, I think, that we have an understanding of now from conversations, is once you did get away, it's like burn the house down, like drastic measures. Like, I will bring this guy down, and, like, I don't care if I, ruin his life, destroy his life, his reputation, whatever it is. And I have no doubt from hearing the story that she cared if you did go to jail or not. Luckily, you are not in jail and you're here talking to us, and it's good to hear that kind of was the final breakup. But wow, that's really scary to deal with. I'm sure.
But it's just a point of what you were saying. It was no longer a mission to get me back. It was more of not traditional, but the old saying of, if I can't have them, no one can, that type of thing. She just basically wanted to get rid of me entirely, I guess.
Yeah, seems like it.
So ever since the breakup, you guys had like zero contact. Did you ever hear of anything about how she's doing, or, you know, any sort of other attempts at her trying to, you know?
I would always hear, because like I said, we had this near same friend groups. Like my friends would be friends with some of her friends, that type of thing. So obviously, like the people she told, all like she would go on about like how I was a bad boyfriend, like how I said. So that was about the only thing I ever heard after the breakup, was her just spreading all this type of nonsense about me. And I would always hear it from my friends, and they would always come to me, be like, dude, you got to do something. She is just constantly going at this. But I knew, like, if I even like looked in her direction, she would try and make it a certain way that, oh, I did something. And obviously, even if I didn't, apparently she ended up accusing me anyway.
Right.
Yeah. Another attempt to lure you in somehow, if not with love, then just trying to destroy your reputation. But, wow. Have you been in a relationship since?
I actually have been, yes, but nowhere near as long as this one. But it's also just been, I guess, mutual understanding, like in the ways those like went about and ended. Mm-hmm. Like there was no like, because I understood now, like before getting in, like I'd understand like if there was any red flags, that type of thing. I actually had some experience, not exactly good experience, but it was something that would help me, I guess, in the future.
Yeah, no, I was going to ask that, and that's good to hear, because I was also wondering too if, you know, sometimes it's extremely hard to get back into a relationship after something like that. But to hear that you've been in some, and that it seems like you're using that terrible experience to help guide you and look for red flags, and I think I would assume put yourself first in this situation. And you know, that type of thing. So that's really good to hear. And you know, we're definitely curious. I mean, any advice or anything that you would leave, you know, listeners with, or anyone in this situation? And you know, again, like, you know, this is sort of a niche topic here because it's not spoken about a lot. Not niche in that it doesn't happen, but that it's not spoken. So even just specifically for men who might find themselves in this position, or who might think this maybe in the back of their heads, that like, am I being abused in my relationship by, you know, a woman? Anything that you would want to kind of leave them with?
I guess I would probably just try and make the point across that, like, even if you can take the hits, doesn't mean that you should exactly take them, I guess. In a way, like, it might not hurt as much as it does to, like, maybe like someone else being abused, of like a bigger strength difference of someone that's weaker, that type of thing. But it's also at the same time, being hit is being hit, and it's not exactly something you should do in a relationship. Even like to the point where this relationship has made it to the point where I don't, obviously you can if you want to, that type of thing. But in a relationship, I've had a relationship where she playfully like would like bash me on the arm. Like, obviously, like I knew she was being playful, but I was like instantly like, hey, like I had to talk with her about that, because it's just, I don't think otherwise, unless there is fully like, you know, they are okay with it, you should lay hands on each other, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. I think that's important, and you know, definitely something that, you know, it sounds like you'll be able to kind of communicate to future, you know, partners. But Yeah, we really appreciate you coming on and giving us the perspective of one that, you don't usually hear. You usually hear, the other side of that. So we think it's super important, and we appreciate you coming on and talking to us.
Well, I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. Good luck with everything. And thank you again.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
Have a good one.
You as well.
Bye. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. When you're at your best, you can do great things, but sometimes life gets you bogged down. You may feel overwhelmed or like you're not showing up in the way that you want. And working with a therapist can help you get closer to the best version of you. And that's because when you feel empowered, you're more prepared to take on everything that life throws at you. Personally, I always talk about this. I've used therapy for over a year now. I truly consider it to be the best decision that I've ever made. It has helped me with some tremendous life changes, transitions from work to starting a family to getting married, all things that are super challenging, hard to navigate. And therapy has really helped me kind of center myself and be able to, work through these big moments. And if you're thinking of giving therapy a try, BetterHelp is a great option. It's convenient, it's flexible, it's affordable, and it is entirely online. You just fill out a brief questionnaire, you get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists anytime you want for no additional cost. It's really, really simple. So no driving to a therapist, no waiting rooms, no seeing anyone in person. All online, super easy, and you can switch if you don't like the first person that you're matched up with as many times as you need for no charge. So you can ultimately find someone that really feels like the best fit for you. And if you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/OPL and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/OPL and get 10% off your first month. Breaking news for you guys, Manscaped is now selling beard products. That's right, they've gone from waist to face to help you replace that bulky razor with their brand new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. Manscaped has helped you get the golden rod of a Greek god, and now they've created the best tools for you to turn heads with a clean, perfectly groomed, and conditioned beard. You can finally tame your mane by heading over to manscaped.com and using our code OPL for 20% off plus free shipping. This kit is truly a life changer. If you're confused like me about how to groom your beard, you should see what I do. I've done everything from just scissors that I found lying around to just straight up razors with no safety thing on it, and I'm just trying to wing it. I've had so many times where I've just cut right into my beard and it looks terrible and I have to wait for it to grow back. So I'm super excited about this, and you don't have to have drawers full of 20 guards anymore. This beard kit has 20 lengths, so it's never been easier to find your signature beard look. It also has beard shampoo and conditioner. They have beard oil. They have beard balm. So you get everything you need to perfectly groom this puppy. And you can get 20% off and free shipping with our code OPL at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use code OPL. The Manscaped Beard Hedger Pro Kit is the premier solution to face grooming. I thought that was a really concise and powerful way to put it at the end. I think he just said, just because you can take the hits doesn't mean that you should. And that was really cool, really simple, but really powerful. And like we said, that's a perspective I've just never heard before. And I think as men, we could both admit how difficult it would be to come out and talk about this, even bring the subject up with friends, with family, and probably in your own mind, try to push it off for as long as possible, like he did.
Yeah. It's a difficult one because, for the reason that he said, it's not, there are people who are not worried about being labeled as weak, of being oh yeah, my girlfriend has been hitting me, and they're not worried about that. What they're worried about or just kind of anticipating is their friends like the advice their friends will give them, which would be just like, that's so wrong, dude. Like you should leave them. And most of the time people know that. They know like, yeah, I know this is bad and I know I should leave them and this isn't working out, but I can't for some reason. Like people just get locked and frozen into these relationships and it's kind of unexplainable. And people who aren't you will never really understand why, or, you know, it just seems so simple. Like, hey, that's wrong. If she hits you, you know, this should be done. Which, and also, you know, to his point of saying that, you know, just because you can take the hits, you shouldn't. Absolutely true. And especially when it comes to physical altercations, no matter what, both ways, women and men should never stand for that in a relationship. You know, obviously there is a playful way to kind of go about that, but as soon as it becomes like a serious thing or a way that a pattern of behavior where someone is like expressing themselves via physical like abuse, that has to end like immediately and or be addressed. And it's easier said than done, especially when you're in a relationship for an extended period of time. So yeah, that's it's a difficult thing, especially as you know, as men to have to sit there and be like, yeah, I'm being abused by this person who's a foot smaller than me and I outweigh them by 100 pounds. Like they're abusing me. And it is possible. And it obviously like, and there is a real thing like that.
I think that's important too, as just a message. Like it is possible, it is real, and it happens. And like abuse is abuse, and it's not watered down or anything. Just, you know, if it's a man getting abused by a woman or size difference or anything like that, it's just, no, it doesn't work that way.
It's also not a boxing fight. Like it's like the size doesn't matter. Like the abuse could be physical or it could be, you know, anything else. It could be verbal or mental or whatever it is. Like emotional abuse, like all of these things can happen. You can be abused by anybody. And you know, especially in sort of relationships, long-term relationships, it can be very tricky and difficult for people to kind of pull themselves out of it. So if someone does confide in you and tell you they are being abused, you really have to like treat that lightly and be understanding, because how they respond to that may not make a whole bunch of sense, but you have to understand that you're not in their position and in their relationship and dealing with everything else that comes with that. So it's just best to try and just be someone who's going to listen to them and, you know, give advice and try to help, but not set expectations on this person who's already getting abused. You can't, you know, then put these things on them of being like, you should do this, you should do that, because now you're just like not really helping.
Yeah, no, it's, I think that's really important to say. And like we've learned from all the conversations on this show, like especially during one of these episodes, the question that we will never ask is, why didn't you leave? Like that's not the question that you say to, you know, a victim of abuse or a survivor of an abusive relationship. We've learned it's much more nuanced than that. But yeah, and he just seems like a really kind of just good guy from the conversation. And like, I feel for him, and that being a first relationship where that probably means so much to a person too. Like now I have this coveted thing. I have this relationship. I've been with this person for a long time. Like, I don't want to lose this. You know, you've put the time, you've put the effort in, and it is hard to just kind of end that. But again, really thank him for coming on, and for sharing that perspective, because I don't think enough men do who go through that.
Yeah, agreed. And, for anyone out there who would like to be a guest on our show, hit us up. Our email is oplpodcast@gmail.com. Send us your story and we'll hit you back.
Yeah, follow us on Instagram, on TikTok at OPL Podcast. You could head over to patreon.com/OPL show if you want to support the show that way. And we will see you next time.
Yep. See you guys.